You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game. And we're going to have a great show this evening because we have as our guest Jennifer Granholm, who is the former governor of the state of Michigan. She was the governor in those key years, 2002 to 2010. We're taping this show on October 26, 2011. And two things are important. There's a great book out now by Jennifer Granholm. Take a
and
look
her
at
husband.
And her husband, Dan
Yes,
Mulhern.
right.
And it's called The Governor's Story. The fight for jobs and America's economic future. What
Give
could
it a
be
good
more
shot.
timely?
There you go.
What could be more timely? The
For
fight
sure.
for jobs and America's economic future. So we're going to hear a lot about that. If you'd like to see somebody get grilled, you're going to see Jennifer get grilled. We're not going to do softball here. We're going to do real hardball, because Jennifer knows hardball, because she is going to be host of the program called The War Room on the new channel that's Current, right?
Current TV, right?
Current
Owned
TV.
by Al Gore and Joel Hyatt, new cable television network.
Coming out in January. you're gonna be
And
doing
my
that.
show will be on in January. I'll be following Keith Olbermann.
We're heading into the presidential election, 2012, right?
Right.
And people are looking at Barack's approval ratings. They've been coming up a little bit, but when he came in, the approval ratings were like 60%, maybe higher.
Mm-hmm.
He was in Illinois. There was Speaker of the House referred to him derisively because they were battling as the Messiah, but actually a lot of people thought he was the Messiah. He was going to part the waters. He was going to bring this country together. He was going to avoid divisiveness. He was going to turn the economy around. He was going to bring the troops home. Some of that has happened, but not a great deal. Did something go wrong with Barack Obama in the presidency, or were the challenges just too great?
I tell you, you would need a Messiah to be able to fix in 3.5 years or 3 years or now, 2.5, not even 3 years, the problems that he's facing with globalization. And, not one president, not one governor has the ability to pull back on trade agreements, even if you'd want to. Nobody has the ability to put the genie of technology back in the bottle, all of which has caused the flow of jobs and capital to move around the planet with great ease. And so the president has got to, and governors have to, figure out how to crack the code to keep jobs and create jobs in America when we're in a global economy. And that's really the big challenge.
But go back to, he's inaugurated in January
Yeah.
of 2009. In February, he comes up with a stimulus program. The folks, Barack and the Council of Economic Advisors, his close advisors, others arguing on behalf, he's saying something that we hear quite similar now. He says you have to pass this legislation. But in 2009, he was talking about the economic stimulus, about an $800 billion program. He said, and his advisors said, if you pass this, we can keep unemployment from going above 8%.
He didn't say that. Christine Romer said it.
Were you going to blame it on Christine?
Well, no, she
But
said
he
it
believed
in
it.
a, she
Didn't
said
he
in an
believe
interview,
it?
and I think a lot of people were hoping that was the
Yeah.
case. But the circumstances being what they are, you didn't predict. Nobody predicted that it would be this prolonged, that it would not be a cyclical problem. And that's what everybody assumed. When you have a recession, there's a lot of stimulus that's always put out there by presidents. It's true with Bush. Bush had a stimulus in 2001, 2002. You put it out as a bridge to be able to get, and then the cycle comes back. This is not a cyclical problem. And it's one of the reasons why we wrote this book, is because the structure of the nation's economy has changed dramatically in this past decade. And so the prescriptions for how you fix it are not the old prescriptions, whether it's a one-time stimulus or the standard prescriptions of just cutting taxes and shrinking government. Those are 20th century prescriptions. What we need now is a uniquely American competitiveness strategy for the 21st century global economy.
Is this a post-Keynesian analysis? Is that what you're saying?
I think we're post-Keynes,
Keynesians?
Post-Keynes and post-Adam Smith, post-Milton Friedman. I'm sorry,
sure?
man, but
are you sure?
yeah, I mean,
the greatest economist in the 18th century, that would be Adam Smith.
Yes.
In the 19th century, a lot of people wouldn't know this, it would be Alfred Marshall. In the 20th century, it was Milton Friedman. He dominated that
he
century.
dominated the thinking, and
But
that
in the
worked for
21st
us.
century, it still works.
No,
Milton's no
wait.
longer here,
Let
but
me
he's
argue
here in
with this
spirit.
about
Maybe
this.
we can channel
We
Milton.
should no, but here's what the point of writing this book. I cut taxes 99 times in my first term, in my first 5 years. By the time I left office, I had cut more as a percentage out of government than any state
So
in
you're
the
a tax
country.
cutter.
Just let me
But you
finish.
are a tax cutter.
Let me finish. Our corporate tax rate between 1997 and 2007 dropped more than any states in the country, cut more number of employees, government employees, than any state in the country. So if shrinking taxes and shrinking government alone were the only prescription, Michigan would have had the most robust economy in the nation. That was not the case. So what I'm saying is that those prescriptions applied to a global economy, when our economic competitors are able to pay $1 an hour or are able to provide a handshake to business in a way that we have never done, mean that those old prescriptions don't work in this global economy.
Well, wait a second, though. Where were you if you ranked the states across the country in terms of the corporate income tax? Where were you? Were you number 12?
We went from, when I came in, we were 27th, according to the Tax Foundation, and we bumped to 17th. So we moved more than any state.
But you're still around the median, so that's good.
But what I'm
better.
saying is we dropped more than any state in the country, so you would think that we
Well, I don't
wouldn't
know.
still
You sure
have
that?
the highest, yes.
What
That's
about on
according to
what
our
about on
Senate.
the individual income tax? What were you and where did you go to?
We were at 3.9, we're now at 4.3.
No,
but-
okay.
3.9%, what are you guys?
We're now at 5%. We were
Okay,
at
so-
3%, which
well,
isn't good in either case.
But the point
That's
is,
not good.
in
What
a
about the property
global,
tax?
wait, just
But
wait a
You've
second.
not looked at all the taxes,
No,
is all I'm
you
saying.
can look at all the taxes. I mean,
Property
you
taxes,
can look at
sales
the whole
taxes, income
thing.
taxes. You're a low tax
Let me
state.
just tell you this. In the first story in this book, I say I went to Greenville, Michigan, because a big refrigerator factory was about to move. And I said to them, I'll give you 0 taxes for 20 years. We'll help to build you a new factory. The workers offered $30 million in concessions. And the company, Electrolux, said, this is a really generous offer, but there's nothing you can do, Governor, nothing you can do, because I can pay $1.57 an hour in Juarez, Mexico. What I'm saying is that while that old prescription of just cutting taxes and cutting government worked in the 20th century, in the 21st century, we have to be more competitive and smarter. It's not just about taxes. We're not going to win the low-skilled manufacturing
because
jobs.
it also matters on the skills you have.
Absolutely.
And the companies, I'm sure, would tell you that, and maybe $1.57 for labor there, but if you can offer more skilled, more productive
Absolutely.
labor,
But how are you
you're
going to get
do
that
better.
skill?
How are
You
gonna
have
that?
to be able to
You have to
educate,
be
right?
You have to be well educated.
Right, you
And that's
do.
a major problem in this country. Let's
It
shift
is.
over to education. Let's shift over to Michigan. Would you say you're doing well across the board in education? Do you have a low-income problem? Do you have students there?
Sure.
In Illinois, we have, in the Chicago public schools, about 85% of the kids are rated as minority and low income, okay?
Well, and Detroit,
And we
a
have,
huge
out
problem.
of 400,000 students, we
Right.
have at least 200,000 or more in failing schools. And we've had reform since 1985 here, but yet they won't try school choice and school vouchers. Did you want to try school choice and school vouchers in Michigan?
Vouchers, no, but choice, yes.
You mean charter schools? Is that what you, did you have charter schools?
I'm in favor of anything that works. So for example, the KIPP schools in San
Knowledge is
Antonio.
power, KIPP.
Knowledge is power, where they have long school days, they've got long school years, they are very flexible, they respond to the individual student, and they've got a huge success rate. I think that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. The models are out there. We should import them to every single place we possibly can because, again, because of globalization, we have stagnated as a country in terms of education, and the other countries have leapt over us. So we're now 17th, 18th in science, reading, math on the international scores. It's wrong.
What did you spend in Michigan per kid per year in the public schools, on average across the state
On
of
average,
Illinois?
about 7,900,
Are
8,000.
you sure? Are you
Well,
sure?
if you add
Because
Title I, I mean, this
no,
is
the whole
just
thing,
state.
I'm counting,
Yeah.
federal spending, state spending,
The
wherever it comes
basic
from. The total- If you
foundation-
take the total amount spent, budgets, from wherever it came from in the
Mm-hmm.
state of Michigan, divide it by the number of students, what's the average expenditure on education, no matter what the source, in the state of
Mm. Yeah,
Michigan?
I don't have, I can
Let
only
me
tell you what the
what it is.
foundation
In Chi-
allowance is. What
okay,
is it here?
In Illinois, it's about $11,000 per kid per year. In Chicago, it's easy. It's about a $6 billion budget, 400,000 students. Do the math, it's $15,000 per kid per year. Do you think we should be able to educate, no matter what the problems are,
Yeah, I do.
kids in the city of
I think
Chicago
the
for
structure
$15,000
is-
per kid per
The
year?
structure does not work.
So something's going wrong.
Something's
And
go-
maybe
oh,
it's going wrong in
absolutely.
Ann Arbor. Maybe it's going wrong in various
There are some
various cities
schools
in
where it
Michigan
goes
where it's
really
going
well
wrong.
and some schools where it doesn't.
So
And the
why
question
not-
is,
why not-
why not
Why
borrow
not
the
school
best
choice?
practice?
Why
Well,
not school choice?
I mean, when you say
Why not school
you're talking
vouchers?
about
Give it a try.
vouchers.
Yeah,
Right,
why
you're
not?
talking about vouchers.
Because why shouldn't you try it? If it doesn't work, you can come back and say, Jeff, it didn't work.
I haven't seen
We're
anywhere
going-
where it has worked.
Milwaukee, it's worked.
Well,
Cleveland, it's
they've
worked.
got, I mean, they've
Cleveland's
got
right
choice.
next door to you.
They've
Did
got
you go
choice.
visit that? I mean, in Cleveland, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
In Washington, D.C., it was working, and your president, my president, the person you stumped for.
Yes.
I didn't stump for because I'm fair and balanced. But the person you stumped for, okay, and Barack was here. We talked about this, because he
Yeah.
was on this show 6 times
Yeah.
from 2000 to 2004. And he and Arnie Duncan cut out a very successful school voucher program in D.C. He pushed to have it cut out. Congress could control that. Why would you do that? $7,500 and kids had hope.
You
and they
should
were
have every
educated.
single school be a choice school, right? Every single school should be a school that, I mean,
The
when I
parents
say
wanna
that.
go to.
Well, assuming that the parents are engaged. But
Even if they're not,
even if
they'll
they're
find
not.
somebody, they'll
but-
find a guardian
but
who
who
will be
will?
engaged.
Who will? What if they're not engaged? What if they're not?
That's
present?
currently the case now then. How are we gonna be worse off?
So what I'm saying is
They'll
that
come to
every
you, Jennifer, and you could tell them.
Every single school in the system should be one that works. Every single school should be. So, but the question is,
Should
how
be.
do you get there?
You get there by having
The best thing that
competition, you know
Barack
that.
Obama did and Arnie Duncan was to put out the race to the top. Now, you got to admit, that was a good piece of legislation. It provided competition
But
among the states.
He kind of backed down from what the criteria were going to be.
Oh, I
Is you were
disagree.
going to tie student performance to, you
And
wanted
the ones
schools that
who
tie their
won-
performance to their evaluation of
Yeah.
teachers, and that was kind of diluted, okay?
Not
I'm
really.
not saying it was a bad, it's
The
a
ones who
step
won
forward,
had
but it's
that.
not as good as it could have been.
Listen, I'm just telling you that they put out a little bit of competition of money for these very hungry states, and governors who had never thought that they could get statewide standards passed bent over backwards and got it through their legislatures under, huge controversy. That worked, and I think you should do something like that, frankly, on jobs.
Because competition works.
Well, competition
believe
among
in
states.
competition?
I do. I do believe in
But
competition.
why don't we have competition among schools?
We do have, we
Why
have
are you
school
opposed to
choice.
school vouchers? Why are you opposed to school vouchers?
Because
We'll go on in a second. I'm not gonna do
all
those
right,
slides.
but here's my
Just give me a
problem with
simple answer,
vouchers,
yeah.
is that if you give the parents the money, you're assuming that the parent has all of the information to be able to make the best choice for their student. That's not necessarily the case. Not every parent is engaged. And that's the same challenge that a lot of the
No,
charter
it's-
school.
But many of them are.
Many of them are.
And so, but
So-
right now, if the parent's
but
not engaged, why
they-
is this a better problem? Because they're at a school, they can't get out. If
Because
they
you
have an
want
aunt, if they have an
every
aunt or uncle
child-
who's engaged,
Because you want every child to go to a school. I
Right.
mean, whether or not their parents are choosing or not, you want their whole neighborhood school to be a great school.
well, should we trust the parents? And if they can't do the job, then we'll give them advice. We'll set up some
Who will give them
procedure.
advice?
The state will, the federal government will, the community, the village. There are lots of people. Jesse Jackson here, Reverend Jackson's done a lot of things like this. He may be the person to say, here's the seal of approval. I'm advising you,
All I'm
parents
saying,
who's not
Jeff, is
involved,
that there
send your kid to a
are
good school.
models out there within the charter system, which is a choice system. You can still choose to send your child to a charter school. There are models out there in the public school system, within the public school system as it traditionally is, that work, and those models we should be
All
replicating.
right, we got to go
Are-
on. You mentioned Slinger.
Yeah,
What
I
about
mean,
Slinger?
I mention it because people use that as an excuse for not having the government invest in sectors that are important to the
You
U.S.
don't want the government to pick winners and
Okay,
losers. Do you want
but
the government to pick winners? and
Yes,
losers?
I absolutely want the
do.
government
You
to
think
pick
you
winners.
think the government knows better than the market?
No, I think that the market knows, and the government
Well, let
needs
the
to
market decide
partner
then.
with the market. But the market is going to choose to go to China. This is
No,
the
they're
point.
not. They're going to
They
go
are
where
abs-
they're going to go where the
Jeff,
opportunities are.
Jeff, yeah. Here's what's going to happen.
You're saying we can't compete with China?
I'm saying we cannot, because we're not doing anything. We are not putting
doing
any
well.
resources on the table to make the companies choose the United States. Here's what China's doing. They're providing upfront access to capital. They're providing a market for these companies. They are giving a
They're
handshake.
subsidizing companies?
They are absolutely
Fine,
subsidizing
let's-
companies.
Let's buy their products that they're subsidizing, and we'll all be better off if they want to subsidize the
Okay,
United
then what do we
States.
do? Then what do we
We'll
do?
do the things that we're best in. We're doing
Which
it
is
now.
what?
All
Mean-
sorts of
meaning that we
services,
will lose every
computers.
bit of
You see
manufacturing.
cell phones? Do you have a cell phone?
Those cell phones are manufactured in China.
Some is, but some is
Where?
manufactured. Some are manufactured here. Components. We don't have things that are, as you know, we're in multinational world in
Yes,
terms of
yes,
production.
absolutely.
So any product, portion is manufactured here, something is made over there.
Stuff is manufactured all over,
Right.
but we will continue to lose the portion that we have if we do not become active. My point is that if you asked multinational CEOs, what country does it best? What country makes a good business case for them to locate there? Here's
United
the country.
States, United
no,
States.
they would not say that.
Who's celebrating
They would
Steve?
say,
Are you
just wait.
celebrating? No, but
They
you gotta,
would say
are you
Singapore.
celebrating Steve Jobs? Are you
Steve Jobs is
celebrating?
great.
And
but
why was he great? Because we had a free market This guy was
Okay,
the
and
genius
and
of
he's
coming
hired
up with a computer.
700,000 people in China to make the iPad.
So
700,000
you're saying,
Chinese.
so Steve wasn't good? He didn't create
No,
jobs in
he
the United
absolutely
States?
did. But
He
what he would
revolutionized
say,
industries.
what he
are you
would say
saying?
is, no, I absolutely think he is.
I
But
mean-
what he would say is, if he was to manufacture in the U.S., he needs a better partnership with the federal government, and that doesn't
We're
mean
never
a
bringing
passive
manufacturing
government.
back the way it
Oh, I
was.
well, not the way it was.
Yeah, we're
but
not.
advanced manufacturing, you better believe we can. And if we don't, we will be a weak nation. We will not
Not really.
manufacture the means for our own national defense, our own energy security. What I'm saying is that we can just continue to be hands-off and laissez-faire. We can decide to do that. That's a choice. But if we
be
do
a
that,
good idea.
no, if we do that, other countries will come in vigorously and start poaching. I was just in China. I met with the Chinese government in March, and there was a whole slew of them who were bragging about how they had gotten jobs from the United States, particularly in clean energy. One of them says to me, when do you think we're going to get a national energy policy in the United States? One of the Chinese officials. And I said, I don't know. There's all of this division in Congress, and this is what he did. He rubbed his hands and he smiled and he said, take your time, because they see our passivity as their opportunity.
Well, I don't think we should look at the Chinese as to be the judges of us as to whether we're doing the right thing. They're mimicking us. And
Well, you
they're-
can't close your eyes
no,
to
but they're
what's going on.
They're copying us. To the extent the Chinese are more productive and more successful and growing, they're adopting a free market economy. We're going in the other direction. We're adopting the Chinese totalitarian
Totally
approach.
disagree with you. That's so wrong.
I mean,
That
no.
is just so wrong.
You
We're
know what it-
completely hands off. I mean, if you
Are
look
you
at
listening to what's going on around the country when we, as of October 26th? You know,
what's
well,
what do you mean?
what's the phrase that's going on in New York in the financial center, in the Chicago in the financial center, in
You mean
Michigan?
to Occupy Wall Street?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is that about?
And what is
it,
that
what
about?
is it that
it's
that
not
thing-
about people saying we don't want government involved. It's like, hello,
Yeah,
get
they
in
all
the
want-
game.
Sure, because they want an insurance that they will have a job no matter what. They will have wealth. They will have a nice house.
They
will
just
have
want
transportation.
a fair chance.
That's not a free market
They
economy.
just want
That's not what got the United
So what
States
the free
here.
market economy has done for us is created the biggest disparity between the rich and the poor since the Gilded Age.
It's not really true.
It's look at the Congressional
Look at
Budget
yourself.
Office
You
came
came
out
here-
today.
you came
The
here from-
Congressional Budget Office came out this week and said that the richest 1%, their income has gone up 275%. That's because there's no.
It's just not true.
There's
number
no
one.
effort
But-
to get. Well, I mean, you can say it's not true,
Well,
but
look
it's
at-
the Congressional
well, look
Budget
at
Office.
that.
But there's no
Oh,
middle
the
class.
CBO,
There's no.
that's the gospel?
Well,
you
I
know-
mean,
you
it's
know
a
that they're sort of
nonpartisan
politically
entity.
because they can only score things the way they are. But look at your own case.
Yes.
You were born in Canada, right? In Vancouver, right?
Right.
Came to the United States, grew up in California, right? I don't know, were you rich and wealthy when you came here?
No, absolutely not. I was 4, but no, my
Okay.
parents were definitely not rich and wealthy.
Look what you did.
Hey,
You went to Berkeley, you graduated with honors, you went to Harvard Law School, graduated with honors, you became governor of a major state, and how did you do it?
Only in America could
You-
this be
this-
possible. I totally
It's
agree
the
with
Barack
you.
Obama story, and he says
It's
this.
a great story.
Could he be president of the United States, of a country, anywhere else, given his background?
No.
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 Only in the United States.
It's a great thing.
This is still
Who's
a great
knocking
country.
that?
This
Not
is still
a
a great
single
country.
person in this room is
well,
knocking that.
okay, because that's the free market. That's
Well,
the mobility. People are judged by the content of their
And you
character,
should have the
not the color of
opportunity.
their skin,
Totally
not
agree.
their ethnicity, not
Totally
their
agree.
wealth. We're not against people becoming wealthy. We want people to become
Right,
wealthy,
right,
right?
right,
So
absolutely.
why is Barack turned on people and he keeps talking about millionaires and billionaires and we have to tax them? And now we're going to say to all the students who've had loans, don't worry, if in 20 years you haven't paid it back, we're going to forgive
So,
them.
Jeff, I mean,
Who's going to
here's-
pay for this stuff?
Here's the question that
There
I
ain't no
have
such
for
thing
you.
as a free lunch.
No, there isn't a free lunch, and every governor knows that because you have to balance the budget. But here's the question I have. For the prescriptions that are being offered by the Republicans running for president,
Who do you have in mind, Mitt Romney?
well, any of them, pick
Is
the
he the
same
most
thing.
likely? You're going to be dealing with this.
Yes, he is the
Make
most
a prediction
likely.
now. Who's going to be the Republican
It's going to be
nominee?
Romney.
Okay.
But all of them
Romney or
have.
Obama? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think anybody's coming in to take the
All of
nomination
them
away
have.
from Barack.
No, I don't think so. All of them have
Hillary
the
might
same
be VP.
prescription. All right, would you let me finish?
Yes, ma'am.
You are too
Go ahead.
much. You're worse than Chris Matthews.
I'm doing a Keith Olbermann imitation. This is my trying out for the current channel.
See, well, you're fired. No, just kidding. No, but all of the presidential candidates have this notion that lowering corporate taxes on the Republican side and lowering or eliminating the capital gains tax is the answer.
It's one
Okay.
answer, not
all right,
the answer.
So,
It's one
so
answer.
let's follow this logic. You eliminate or lower the capital gains tax. The thought would be that the investors are going to invest in job creation, right?
Right.
You would say that. Where are they going to invest? They're going to invest in a global market. Where are they going to invest? They're going to trade on the exchanges that support multinational corporations. The multinational corporations, they are no longer bound to the U.S. soil to create jobs here. They're going to invest where they can get the biggest return for their shareholders, and likely that's in a developing nation where they're growing a market.
No.
Of
If the
course
United
it
States,
is.
if the United States wants to be like a developing country, which it could be, it'll lower, if not eliminate, capital gains tax. It will create all sorts of opportunities.
But nobody's going to invest
It
here.
will improve the quality of education by adopting school choice. It'll become what it once was, a free market. And countries will know that they come here, they can get skilled labor, they can be relieved of tax and regulatory burdens, and they can blossom, and they
Okay,
can make
I'm with
money.
you on a few things.
Okay.
I'm with you on education, and I'm with you on making sure that we've got a fair corporate tax rate. But
And one other
eliminating,
thing, and
but here's what, let me just, the point I'm making is that if you cut the investors' taxes and they invest, they're going to invest globally. They're going to invest where they can get the biggest return, just like the multinational corporations are. The question is, what should be the tax policy that ties to job creation in the U.S.? If you just cut taxes without tying it to job
No, you
creation
don't have to
here,
tie it, because
then
you
you
want-
might be facilitating the flight of jobs and
No, you're not
capital off
facilitating-
of this
You want the
this
market to
continent.
decide the location of jobs. Some will be here in the United States, but some won't. If a country is free to locate their employees where they want, just like now we're saying to Boeing, they wanted to put a new plant in Tennessee, but they're not going to be allowed to because somebody on the National Labor Relations Board thinks it's his decision, that the government should decide where Boeing should put the plant. Do you think Boeing's going to want to invest in the United States? Do you think any country's going to want to invest when they can't even decide where they put a plant within the United States, let alone outside? That's the thing you're missing. You know, this is the problem with Berkeley. It's a great school, but you must have known Laura Tyson there, right?
Yes.
Okay, she was on the Council of
Yes.
Economic Advisors.
Yeah.
Probably even knew Tom Jordy, right, possibly, in the law school.
I
Maybe
don't
not.
know Tom Jordy.
David Teese, any of these folks? They're good economists, but they don't
I'm
have the
brand
fun.
new there.
Oh, but you went to Berkeley.
I did,
Yeah.
as an
And you took
undergrad,
courses
many
in
years ago,
economics.
though.
Well, they were all
I'm
there
older
then.
than probably
Laura
them
Tyson
all.
was there then, sure. But
Not as a
okay.
professor.
But the point is, their bias is against the free market.
I
Okay.
just disagree with that. I mean, the
They-
free market is a
there are
great thing.
many people
But the
good, but they
assumption
just- that's
is
the
that
bias
other
against it.
countries are abiding by the same rules. And when the playing field of our economic chessboard enlarged to include the rest of the world, and they're not playing by the same rules, we have to devise a uniquely American system that respects the free market, but also that recognizes that our economic competitors are not.
But that's their fault, because if they're
It's their fault, but we gotta get in the game.
Remember, there's a theory called mercantilism. You know, you
Yes,
want people,
yes.
you want the trade balance to be in your favor. You gain from exports, not from imports. That theory was disproved 200 years ago. What you gain from is really from imports. You gain from free trade. If other countries like China want to fool around with the yen and do all those things, let them do it, okay? That doesn't help them. They
But it's
think
a
they might.
zero-sum game. It's
not
at
a
our
zero.
expense.
Free trade is a positive game. This is what you have to
No,
understand.
but what I'm talking about on the jobs front,
We'll get the jobs. Right now, we're a
but
major exporter
how
in the
long do we
world.
have to wait to get
There
those
already are.
jobs?
We are a major exporter in the
We
world
have,
now.
this is why Occupy Wall Street exists. This is why the
Barack came
unemployment
around to
rate
this. Why
is
did
so
Barack
high.
just sign
Because
the
there's a
Colombian Free Trade
structural
Agreement?
change. Yes, and that's a
He's
great
saying
thing.
The South Korean free trade.
the
But
Sou-
why didn't he sign these 2 years ago? Had he done
Because
that,
he got to
we'd
get
be well
Congress
on
to
our way
approve it,
recovery.
that's why. And he
No, no,
negotiated
no.
it a year ago. He
But
got the deal
Democrats were
done.
holding it up, and they didn't get passed till
In-
the Republicans took over the House.
I mean, I disagree with that. Thank you very
So
much.
looking forward, okay?
Yes.
The stimulus, I think you'd have to agree, didn't work.
No, I disagree with you 100%.
You think it worked?
Components of it worked. The components that I favor and that I think they should do more of worked, which is
But $800 million
enabling,
was spent. The
and
unemployment
half of it
rate
was
is
spent on tax cuts, and that didn't
not
work.
the right kind of tax cuts. This is what many
What kind of
Democrats
tax cuts
don't
would
get.
you have?
You want to cut the marginal rates of taxation on income, on capital gains, because you want to give people an incentive to work, save, and invest. If you have something that just says, you know, this year you're going to get a cut in the payroll tax. Well, if you're spending and you're a rational consumer, you're not going to go out and buy more. You're not going to adjust your behavior in terms of working more because you think it's temporary. It's just going to happen this year. But if you were to say, we've adopted a program and we're going to see to it that this stays in Congress, we want this to be a 5-year tax cut. We're not going to fool around with it. Payroll taxes are cut for the next 5 years. Consumption, production, working patterns will all change because you know this. You're a smart person. You got the best of training at Harvard and at Berkeley. And you know, if you want to change behavior, you have to change the long-term incentives, right?
I agree with that.
But he just changed it, this president.
Except for
he
when-
tampers with tax things, and he says, well, the
Jeff,
Republicans
I
got what they
disagree
wanted.
with you. I mean, when he enabled us to compete for investments that are for the long term, that would allow us to diversify our economy in Michigan, for example, these battery plants that have now come to Michigan as a result of the ability to give them upfront access to capital, that was a long-term strategy that changed. And capital gains tax cuts, when you get your capital gains, extra money, you're going to invest it in your global monetary funds. You're going to invest it where your stockbroker tells you to. And it's not just in U.S. in companies. It's going to be all over the globe. So to think that just cutting the capital gains tax was going to create jobs in the United States is really an old way of thinking.
No, if everything else, if you make the other changes in terms of regulation, in terms of allowing people to compete, to grow, you don't have to force them to make all their expenditures here. You provide a good environment, and they will make many expenditures.
So if
they'll
you
make it
ask,
elsewhere.
so you ask them
keep trying to tie things to, as if you can manipulate and say, this company should put this job here, and you know best where it should be. And I know you know better, so you've got to release yourself from the Democratic dogma.
You've got to release yourself
you.
from the Republican dogma, man. I thought you were supposed to be fair and balanced.
I am fair. No, I am fair. Have you got a shot here? I mean, you have. When you host your program on Current,
yes,
okay, and on the
I'll
web,
have you on and we can battle it.
But not just me. Why don't all stations do this? Why don't, Keith Olbermann brings on Democrats and they just do softballs to each other. And on the right, Hannity brings on, conservatives, Republicans, and they do softballs. I'd like to see Keith Olbermann interview, Hannity, or vice versa, wouldn't you? Why don't you make your show like that? Looking ahead in 2012, it's Obama and Romney.
So here's what it comes down to, and this is again why I wrote this book, because in 2006, I ran for re-election. I was elected and I had really sky-high approval ratings at the beginning too. By the time my election came around, my approval ratings were underwater. The wrong track numbers in Michigan were off the chart. I ran against a wealthy businessman who said he could come in and fix it because of his private sector experience. And guess what? I won by the largest number of votes ever cast for governor. I'm just saying, if I could do it in Michigan, which was the toughest state economy in the nation, president can be reelected.
But let me just ask you this. When you came in 2002, what was the rate of unemployment in Michigan?
About 6.
And what was it when you left in 2010?
Well, it got up to 14.5, but now it's like about 10.
No, it got up to, was it 14.5 when you left?
No, that was in the height of the implosion.
So when
of
you
the
left,
economy.
it was 10?
That was like in December.
So it was much higher. But it would be unfair to say that was all your fault, or maybe any of it was your fault,
it was
because
the
it was a
auto
national.
industry. It was the
Right.
auto industry.
And we bailed out the auto companies.
Yes.
We could have had them go through a bankruptcy like anybody else, and the nation wouldn't have fallen apart.
Yeah, it would
Michigan
have.
would have
Yeah, it
fallen
would have.
apart.
Yes, it would
Because
have.
people come out of
It would have
bankruptcy
been
all
a-
the time, and they're quite competitive.
Do you know how long?
But instead, we
Wait,
stepped
are you
in and
saying
bailed them out.
that the bailout of the auto industry was not a good idea?
It's not a good idea.
Oh,
ever to
man.
bail
All
out
right,
first.
that's it. It's on, baby.
You think it was?
Absolutely. I mean, look at our
You don't think-
in Michigan.
why
Wait.
should-
Let me finish
You
explaining.
asked me a
Don't
question,
jump.
and I don't
You know,
get to
then
answer
you
it.
asked me a question back.
Right.
Wait, who's the guest here?
Is Barack Obama, say he'll be facing Mitt Romney most likely in 2012, is he going to be able to stand up there and say he performed, or is he going to say he would have performed except for the do-nothing Congress and those bad Republicans and some Democrats who didn't go with him? Or is he going to make the argument that he delivered, that people are better off now than they were 4 years ago?
He's not going to be able to say they're better off than they were 4 years ago, but he's going to say they are better off than they would have been if they had had the other guys. And absolutely he should campaign against the do-nothing Congress. And absolutely he should campaign on what he has been able to get through, whether it's education reform, Wall Street reform. The stimulus, I think, was a major success.
He should
The
campaign on
bailout
that.
of the auto industry, his efforts on clean energy, you bet. I'm really proud of this president, and I hope that people give him a second term. I believe that his interests and his intelligence, his meaning the president's, will serve us well. I don't think he's going to do anything rash. He has not done things rash in the past. I think he's doing the right thing.
All right, so when you come back to Chicago, you're going to come back in public affairs one more time?
I'll come back and we'll finish this argument.
All right,
And I'm
thanks
going to
so
win
much.
it. Thanks. All right.
All right.
That was fun.